So you finished your game, right? And now you've done your store page and you're getting ready to launch, and you're asking yourself, how much should I charge for my game? This is one of those hard questions that, unless you've published a lot of games, it's very hard to know. People in the industry are going to tell you certain things, and the funny thing about that is that if they've only launched a game or two, whilst it might feel like they have a lot of experience, they might not really understand the intricacies of the market and may not have seen that much. Now, there are definitely companies that are bigger than mine, and there's definitely a lot of studios that have made a lot more money, but I don't believe there's that many that have published as many as we have. Now, I've always made it a policy on this channel to not specifically mention which games I've worked with for various reasons, NDAs, and I just never wanted this channel to be about self-promotion. It's about just helping young devs, or just, people who want to make video games, and I don't want to make it about mine. So as of this video, my studio or my company has published 49 games. That's just on Steam, actually, if we're not counting other distribution sites or platforms, better said, then actually we're probably looking north of 50. But anyway, I do have some tips for you if you still haven't decided how much to price your game. Now, first of all, you need to see whether your game is a game that a lot of people are going to play or is for a very niche market. Now, if it's for a really niche market, you probably need to charge more than you think you should. Now, I know that might seem a bit bizarre, but just go on Steam now and check out genres that aren't the most popular but have a very dedicated fan base. Just the other day, I was checking out RTSs, real-time strategies, and I rarely saw anything under 40 Australian, or 30 US dollars. So that might seem a bit mad, but if you think about it, it takes a lot of work to make this type of game, and it's not a genre that is still super popular. So for the few that do play this game, or this type of game, then it's actually really important that that the devs or the studio that made it have to make their money off those that actually do play. Otherwise, this type of game won't exist. And as for the people who actually do play it, they'll actually be quite grateful. Now, within if you look at expenses and what a video game is and what it does for you when you get home, $30, $40 for an RTS, which really gives you a lot of replayability and fun, it's actually all right. So you need to look at the genre that you're making and then decide, is this something that a lot of people are going to play, or is this something that a niche crowd are going to play? Now, on our end, we make a few different types of games. My favorite type of game to make are detective mysteries. Now, a really good detective mystery will have a lot of stuff that the person needs to work through, like a lot of red herrings, a lot of documents and things like that the person's going to investigate, that is supposed to throw them off a bit so they can discern and deduct what is relevant and what isn't. So a lot of that is a lot of work, and it's not the type of game that everybody would enjoy. So for those, we do charge a bit more than might seemingly feel like it's worth, but that's because it's a limited crowd, and so we're basically tailor-making games for a couple thousand people. So you need to bear that into mind when you're when you're pricing your game. Obviously, when you make it, that's a decision you decided a long time ago. Though I still feel that if you want to be in this game of making games, that you should be planning according to what is commercially viable at the very start. It's all well and good to say, I enjoy playing this type of game, therefore I'm going to make this type of game, but I will show you all the thousands of platformers on Steam that don't make money. Because end of the day, if you want a platformer, you're not really going to beat Nintendo. There's other good ones, obviously, like Celeste. But anyway, so that's the first decision. Now, the problem is a lot of devs sometimes fall into the trap of thinking, my game is cheap, so a lot of people are going to buy it. But things have changed a lot. There are thousands and thousands of games on Steam. I think there was an estimate somewhere saying that about 8,000 new games get published on Steam every year. That might be higher now. because of lockdown, and a lot of people actually developed games during lockdown. But one estimate I had was that, like, realistically, in terms of like games that actually sell, like, are for sale rather than just free games and stuff like that, because free games are a competition. Yeah, it's about 8,000. And I know it sounds like I said something there that was a bit contradictory, but that's not really the case, because people who only buy free games don't pay for games, so they were never your clients. Now, making a game cheap is no real advantage, because there's a big difference between somebody who will actually open their wallet and pay for a game versus somebody who just wants them for free. They'll just download illegally or only play free games. But somebody's willing to pay and get a more tailored experience, that's the person you want, or that's the client you want, better said. And in order to get them to buy your games, you're not really competing on price. A lot of them, like I said earlier, when you think about what a video game is and what it does for you, the price, even at $30, $40, is all right, because it entertains you for so long. If you compare it to a film and stuff like that, it's not quite there. And then obviously you can say, oh yeah, but then a streaming platform, for what you pay, you get many more hours. But if you like video games, you like video games. So that's one thing that you have to take into factor when you're pricing your games. The other really important thing is you have to remember that lump sum you're not going to get. So Steam takes 30%. Now, a lot of people know this. A few of the other platforms take a similar amount. We're not on like Epic or any of the other ones. We have sold on App Store and Android, and back then it was similar. I don't know what it is now, but we'll run with the Steam one, because honestly, if you're an indie dev, Steam's really where you're gonna get your start. So 30% goes to Valve, Steam. So that's that. Almost every dev knows that. Now, what not every dev knows is that there's a few other bits that kick in. So, for example, Uncle Sam, the IRS, the tax office in America, takes about another 5%, depending on which country you live. Obviously, if you live in the States, then that's its own thing. Here in Australia, when the money gets sent over, Uncle Sam gets about 5%. And then obviously there's other taxes from other countries. And then you've got your refund rates as well. So depending on the type of game you make, you actually get vastly different refund rates. So if it's actually a very niche type of game, so our detective mysteries, we only normally get about a 5% refund rate. So it's very good on those. Very few people refund, but other genres are closer to 10%. So you need to factor that in as well. So factor all this in when you price your game. So for example, let's say you sell a game for $10, expect to only get $6. And that's just from full price, which you're gonna get during launch, unless you launch a discount, but that's a different story for a different day. But the people who, you've got in the video game world, we call them whales, which is a bit mean, but basically these are the people for who price is indifferent. They're price insensitive. So they don't really mind spending because it's their main hobby. They obviously have disposable income, and so they're happy to sell. No, sorry, they're happy to buy at whatever price. So they're just gonna buy, and that's great. So it's important. That's why having a great launch is really important. You've got them, but honestly speaking, that's most of the full price sales you're gonna get. You'll get a few more during the first 2 years of your game, but it's gonna be rare. The vast majority of your sales are gonna be discounted sales. So you need to factor that in when you make your price. The other thing is, depending on what your marketing strategy was, you have to be very realistic about the amount of units you're gonna ship. Now, if you've never launched a game before, it's very tempting to think that, 1,000 will be impossible. Now, depending on how niche your game is and exactly how much you've marketed it and what your wish lists are, that 1,000 on the first year might be possible, but the Steam median is actually 500. So let's say your game sells for 10, you get 6, and you've sold 500 on the first year, and that's not really counting discounts, but let's just keep the math simple for now. That means 3,000, but even that 3,000 is not really going to be there, because That's just for countries like the US or other countries that are going to pay a comparable amount, like Britain, Switzerland, Austria, Germany, Scandinavia, etc. A lot of people who are going to buy your games are not necessarily from there, and so they're going to pay a little bit less for your game. So you need to factor that in as well. Now, for those of you that it doesn't really matter, like obviously it matters how much you make, but like you've essentially made this game in your free time. You're not looking at it from a business perspective. You're just like, I really wanted to make a game. I've made a game. This is, maybe $3,000 extra in the pocket after a year for a game that maybe took you about half a month if you're solo and you do it yourself. Maybe you put in a bit of money, a couple thousand here and there. That might not seem so bad, but obviously if you're trying to live off it, that might not be quite so easy. So again, you need to factor these things and the type of game you made. I'm not going to run by all the different scenarios, because I think there's so many different types of genres and so many levels of investment in a game, between a solo guy who just made a game on the basic engine and did all the graphics himself to somebody who may have gotten a few contractors and put in a couple $1,000s. I've even seen cases in forums of people who work in tech and have money and have put in about half a year's salary into their game, which in another video I'm gonna talk about why that's a terrible idea. But for now, I think, use these parameters to advise how you price your game, I think. But yeah, don't underprice a game. It's the basic, if you want to have any takeaway from this, don't think, oh yeah, just because my game's $3-4, a lot of people are going to think, oh yeah, that's like candy at the end of, like the chewing gum that you buy whilst you're, finishing your groceries. That's not the mentality, because it's not money that you're fighting, it's time. No matter what, everyone has the same 24 hours in a day. Everyone tries to sleep for a big chunk of it. Everyone has to go to work for a big chunk of it. So that little bit of leisure time, that's what you're fighting for. All right, cool. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next video.